Hi guys, it's Molly with Soul School Spiritual Guidance and Healing. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. It's so good to be back, you guys. I do want to just give a great big thank you to everybody who either commented yesterday or reached out to me via some other platform just to say hey, to thank me for the messages, to make me feel really, really wonderful and welcomed back to this platform. You guys are making me feel really good. So don't beef up my ego too much, because that's been a big struggle for me. And it's actually what we're going to be talking about today. Just the concept of ego. I'm going to share with you guys some of my experiences, findings, revelations, the path that I have kind of been walking over the last several months to finally get to the bottom of what it means to have an ego, what it means to integrate the ego, and why that's such a necessary part of the journey that we are all on towards ascension at this time. So I've got notes. I just kind of have to check in. All right, if you guys want personal readings, do check out the information below. I'm going to do some recalibration over on my site. I don't know if rates are going to change too much, but if you guys have any questions about how to book a reading, shoot me a message at info@soulschoolspiritual.com, and I'll be really, really super happy to get back to you guys. Otherwise, check out my website. It's all out there. All right, so let's go ahead and let's talk about this. Part of what I have been doing, God, it's been lonely. I miss you so much, but I really understood that in order for me to be able to serve well on this platform, doing what I'm doing, that I needed to really, really go within and figure some things out for myself. And part of the reason why I needed to do that is because there are a lot of misgivings. I talked about reckless teachings and I'm gonna bring you guys down here. Come in. All right, yeah, let's do that. Okay. There's a lot of messages out there in the spiritual community about what ego is and what we're supposed to do with it, how it functions, what's its purpose, is it good, is it bad, what are we supposed to make of all of this, right? And so what I do is just my method is I like to gather up all the information and perspectives that I can from other people and then take that on a little journey of my own in which I work through the personal experiences and the messages from my guides in order to be able to reach a conclusion about the new beliefs that are going to serve me well on my path, okay? So beliefs around ego. Like I said, a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of people out there that's like, your ego is the opposite of your higher consciousness, of your higher self, that it's somehow something that works against us, and that it needs to be suppressed, or that it needs to be denied, or that, the major goal out there for everybody is ego death. And it's really not. It's just ego awareness. That's what I believe, okay? So I got a list of questions that I set out on my own to try to answer, and I've got my responses to you to share with you today, but please don't let me define what ego means to you. I'm inviting each of you to go on your own path to come up with your conclusion as to what ego means to you, how it functions in your life, and what do you got to do with that in order to become the ascended and whole and integrated person that each of us is trying to become. Let's just go ahead and dive into those questions now, okay? All right, why do we have an ego? Why do we need it, okay? This goes to the whole framework that I've been talking about on my channel for a while, where I talk about densities rather than dimensions. I feel that talking about the 7 vibrational frequencies, the bandwidth, so to speak, that consciousness is capable of occupying in this universe, right? Basically, there are 7 densities, and each of us is going to occupy each of those densities as we work towards our spiritual ascension. Like, that's essentially what it is. Spiritual ascension, right? Is moving through these different ways of having consciousness, right? Because at each different level, at each different density, there are types of beings, right, that fall onto that bandwidth, all right? I've got a little chart in front of me, okay? And then each of those beings has a particular focus of consciousness in order to learn certain lessons about just what it means to exist in the world, all right? So at the first density, we have atoms, molecules, DNA, minerals, water, stuff like that, okay? These are basically forms of being in which the focus of our consciousness is simply awareness of the here and now. That's not something that we leave behind when we evolve past the first density, right? So the reason why we need that awareness of the here and now is it really helps us to just understand the laws of the universe, all right? The second density evolution, plants, animals, fungi, stuff like that. At that level, when you are in those types of bodies, those types of incarnations, the focus of your consciousness is the formation of a group identity. Like if you are a piece of algae, if you are a tree in a forest, if you are a jaguar, right? There is an important sense of understanding, I am a part of a group. And my best interests are served when the best interest of the group is served. That's something that, again, we don't leave behind at the second density. In fact, it's going to be very, very important when we are stepping from the third into the fourth density. That is the vibrational shift that I believe is happening on the planet at this time. A lot of people talk about shifting from 3D, third dimension, to fifth dimensional. And I do use those terms sometimes, but I don't think that they're the best descriptors of our particular experiences on this planet at this time, okay? All right? So we're in the third density. That's what old Earth humans, that's what I wrote in my little chart. New Earth humans are fourth density, old Earth humans are third. Meaning that's the world that we grew up in. That's the world that we've been conditioned to. And at this density, this frequency, this vibration of consciousness, the focus is actually the development of an individual identity. And that's the reason why we need an ego. That's the reason why we need an ego, okay? Because ego is essentially the machinery that allows us to have the experience of forming an individual identity. At the fourth density, which we're moving into, our goal is to reintegrate that individual identity into a group identity, all right? So, that's just me kind of summarizing the first four steps of these densities, these different ways that consciousness can exist on the planet in this universe at this time, all right? So we're moving out of a space where the ego very much defines just the focus of consciousness in our bodies in these lifetimes on the planet at this time. But we're moving into a place where we need to be able to integrate that into a group identity. So for me, it's not about squashing the ego, suppressing the ego, denying the ego, or demonizing it in any way, shape, or form, because you cannot work towards integration when you're ignoring and fragmenting and repressing other parts of the self. You just can't do it. It's physics, all right? It's quantum physics. But what we can do is we can identify what ego is and how it functions within us. And then we can begin to recognize what is ego versus what are the other ways that we can see ourselves in the world as not just like individual personalities, right? Because we hold on to that when we move into the fourth density. We don't lose our personalities. We don't lose them at the fifth density or the sixth density. Like, your guides have personalities, right? That's where they exist. Fourth, fifth, sixth density, that's all of our guides, okay? They've got personalities. They haven't separated from them, but they've learned to take those personalities, that sense of I am an individual, and work within a super conscious, if you will. At the 6th density, that becomes a social memory complex. I feel like I'm getting a little too technical, so I'm gonna actually move away from that and just, what do we have here? I'm gonna look at my notes. See, I'm trying to stay focused. So that's why we need to have an ego. That's why we don't want to just completely suppress it or ignore it or kill it off. And that is why it's important for us to work on integrating that ego into our new sense of how we interact with the world, all right? Just know what ego is and then be able to work around that. Be able to differentiate between, oh, this is my ego and this is my sense of the highest good of all. And just understand that there are two working parts. There are two mechanisms that are going to help you gain the perspective that you need to maintain the focus of consciousness that you need in order to learn the lessons that are available to us at the 4th density, okay? In a lot of ways, by the way, I do want to mention, many of us came here from those upper densities, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And in those densities, we are able to serve as guides, but it's really hard. You know, when you're having conversations with your guides and you're like, excuse me, when was the last time you had a body? When was the last time you had an ego, right? We have to remind our guides what it's like to be in this incarnation. Sometimes we as guides come here in order to remind ourselves. Yeah, so this is not new. Most of us, we've already done this work before, but here we are getting to learn how to do it again, all right? So here's how I define what ego is, okay? In order for us to understand it, ego is that which helps us to define our own personal identity. So ego is that which says, I am X. I am Y, I am Z. This is who I am and how I am different than the other people around me. I'm getting the quote now from Nietzsche. Is it in Ecce Homo? I'm gonna see if I can pull it up. He says, I am such and such a person. Yeah, he says that's just like a normal human need to say, hear me, for I am such and such a person. Above all, do not mistake me for someone else, right? It's important for us in this particular, in the 3rd density phase of our evolution to say, I am this, but I'm not that. I'm this, but I'm not that, right? But the problem is when we become emotionally attached to those I am statements, that actually restricts our ability to see ourselves as anything else, okay? All right, you see where I'm going with this? Okay, so if I say I am female, I mean biologically, yeah, right? But in order to transcend the message that the self-limiting messages, right, that come along with what it means to be female, I have to be able to conceptualize myself as other things, right? Because the goal essentially is to move from I am female, I am young, I am a teacher, I am a member of this political party or that political party, or I am a even to say things like I'm a witch, I'm a Pleiadian, I'm a starseed, right? All of those things help us to define our experience, but then once we have seen that, we need to not let ourselves get detached. We have to not let ourselves get too attached emotionally to those I am statements, because what we're essentially supposed to be working towards is just the I am. I am such and such a person. Above all, do not mistake me for somebody else, okay? I am me. I'm Molly, and I can choose words that might help you to understand how I want you to identify me. But essentially, we have to understand how flawed the entire system is of saying I am I am a Republican, or I am a Christian, or I'm a Buddhist, right? And in fact, I see people struggling with this. They're like, well, what do you call yourself? What am I if I believe in X, Y, Z? Like, you're you. You are you. You're you. And no, but don't let anybody mistake you for another person, because you're you, okay? So these I am statements can help us on our path to finding our true selves. Like, what does it mean to really be Molly? I have to go out there in the world and be Molly in order to know that. I can't just get out a pen and paper and say, well, I am XYZ, okay? It's the why can't I think of normal words, subtitle of Nietzsche's autobiography, by the way, Ecce Homo, Behold the Man, is how to become what you are. How to become what you are, okay? You are you. You are an individual, person. There's nothing else. There is no other energetic signature in the entire world that matches yours, okay? There are those that exist in harmony with it, but you are you and nothing else, all right? So when we begin to emotionally attach ourselves to our I am XYZ statements is when we begin to actually hold ourselves back from discovering any part of ourselves that may be antithetical to that. So here's an example. I am a nice person. I am. I believe that to be true. I am a nice person. But I have to understand that what that means to other people is going to differ, all right? And I also have to question, what does it mean to me to be a nice person? Does that mean that I have no boundaries? It used to. It used to. I used to be like, oh, well, it's hard to be a nice person and have boundaries. So I prefer to identify as a nice person than I do to identify with a person who has boundaries. But the closer I get to the I am that I am, the more I realize I'm a nice person who has boundaries. And that's a healthy way to be, okay? So, 17 minutes, I talked a lot about that, all right? Like I said, you guys, I had to go through this process myself in order to come up with the questions that I had, answers to the questions that I had. And I don't mean to say, hey guys, I figured it out. You can call off the search. Here are the answers. Here's just my experiences, and I really, really wanted to share those with you guys, okay? So, what else wants to come in there? Oh, okay, they want me to pull in some magical menagerie. This deck is just so sweet, and I'm just really connecting with the energy of it right now, okay? So the magical menagerie is an oracle card deck, and I do have a book that goes along with it. So I just want to pull one card, I think, and try to get a message. If I need to go into an extended message, then I'll go ahead and do that. You guys can find the link in the description box below over to Vimeo to see that message. They want me to, because I've got a couple other decks here that are talking to me. So let's just go ahead and get a sneak peek at what Spirit wants to say to us today. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. This is the Wren, okay? And Wren energy, to me, I do have the book, but this is an entry that I know very well. Wren energy, to me, actually what's really interesting is the myth that they share about the Wren. And I believe that it's a Native American myth. And it talks about how the Wren can actually fly higher than any other bird, even the highest flying in the world, which is, according to this legend, the eagle, right? The reason why is because the Wren can hop on the back of the eagle and soar, right? So that's actually literally, technically, flying higher than the eagle. Let me see if I butchered that enough. Where are you at, Wren? 105. They want me to say that's a number. Some of you guys might be resonating with it this time. All right, so resourcefulness, wit, and confidence, okay? It is a Druid story. It's a Celtic myth, okay? Wren rode on eagle's back to the greatest height and then flew higher still to become the greatest of birds. That's a story that is told both by Native Americans and the Celts. That's cool. Such confidence and boldness is so unexpected in such a small bird that it takes its aggressors by surprise. Wren is a loud, cheerful bird that wants to live life to the fullest, but also has a reputation for being messenger from the gods and for prophecy, hence the connection with the Celtic myth of Bran. So if you guys are familiar with that, if not, go ahead and dig into it a little bit more. But I think that the way that this ties into the message that I have today definitely goes back to the ideas of the densities, right? And about the perspective that can be gained, okay? That's really beautiful. It's unpacking itself to me. It defies the way that in which others might identify the Wren, right? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Spirit. All right, so in this situation, the eagle does represent essentially our escalation, our evolution through these different densities, okay? The Wren represents us. We need to set ourselves apart from others in order to gain confidence in who we are, moving through the next several densities of the vibrational frequency wavelength on our own. Okay? Confidence has a lot to do with ego. Confidence is the result of a very healthy ego. I am such and such a person. Do not mistake me for somebody else, right? And a part of how we get there is not only through identifying first as a group consciousness, but then being able to reach this slightly higher frequency, vibration, in which we see ourselves as individuals and separate, right? Because, Wren and eagle are both birds. So Wren uses eagle to come up and then flies off of the back of the eagle to fly even higher, okay? In order to gain the perspective that we need, oh my God, because the lesson that we are meant to learn in this density is to break the illusion of separation. To realize that why can't I say the words? Individual identity or ego is essentially a veil that is put over our eyes. The way that we come into this world and we forget our past lives, that's a veil, okay? Ego is a veil that we need to see things through in order to be able to move forward in our path of evolution, okay? This is the process through which we gain the confidence in who we are as a individual fragment of the whole of creation of the universe, okay? But then the whole purpose of having an ego, of having that veil, is learning to see through it. That's kind of amazing. That's kind of amazing. All right? I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, this part of the reading. And I am going to go ahead and do an extended for you guys. For any of you who are on this journey, if you feel like you want more messages at this time, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to kind of focus in my frequency and see what kind of messages we can get. Speaking of birds, we have the crow tarot on the table that's speaking to me. And speaking of Bran, which shows up in the Game of Thrones mythology as well as the Celtic myth of the Wren, this Game of Thrones is another deck that wants to talk to me. So, link in the description box below if you guys want to hop on over there and check it out. Thank you so much for all your support of this channel. I love you so much, and I hope to see you back here again soon. Take care.